"May I pray for you?" asked the little beggar girl to the sick priest who was crying in the church. Father David Johnson never imagined that at 52 years old, he would be questioning everything he believed in. Tears streamed down his face as he tried to gather strength for the morning mass at his small parish in the countryside of New York. That's when he felt a tiny hand gently touch his bald head. When he looked up, he saw a girl no older than 7, with messy blonde hair and a brown sweatshirt that seemed too big for her. "May I pray for you?" the child asked in a sweet voice, yet with a seriousness that didn't match her age. The priest was surprised. For months, he had been battling deep depression that began when he discovered his younger sister, Sarah, had disappeared without a trace. She was the only family he had left after his parents passed, and now he found himself completely alone in the world. "How did you get in here, child?" he asked, quickly wiping away his tears. "The door was open. I always come by here when I'm hungry," she replied matter-of-factly. "But today, I saw you crying and wanted to help." Father David looked at the girl more closely. Her clothes were dirty and torn in places. Her bare feet showed calluses and small cuts. It was clear she lived on the streets. "What's your name?" "Grace. And you're the priest of this church, right? My mom always said priests are good people. Where is your mother now?" The girl's face saddened for a moment, but she quickly smiled again. "She's not here anymore. But she taught me that when we see someone suffering, we should offer help. That's why I asked if I could pray for you." Father David felt something stir in his chest. It had been so long since he had felt the comforting presence he once found in faith. Maybe it was the innocence of the child or the sincerity in her eyes, but he decided to accept. "Of course, Grace. I'd like that very much." The girl closed her eyes and placed her small hands on the priest's head. She began whispering a prayer he couldn't fully understand, but it sounded familiar. In those moments, Father David felt a peace he hadn't known in months. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. When Grace finished praying, she opened her eyes and smiled. "There, now you'll feel better." "Where did you learn to pray like that?" the priest asked, intrigued. "My mom taught me. She said I had a special gift for talking to God." Father David invited Grace to have breakfast at the rectory. As he prepared bread with butter and warm milk, he noticed how the girl looked at everything with curiosity but didn't touch anything without permission. "How long have you been living on the streets, Grace?" "About 2 months. After my mom got really sick and left, I didn't know where else to go." "Is there no one else in your family?" "I don't know. Mom always talked about an uncle, but I never met him. She just said he was a very important person and that one day he'd take me to meet him." Something about those words struck Father David strangely. His sister Sarah had always spoken of having a daughter who lived with her father in another city, but he had never met his niece. "What was your mother like, Grace?" "She was very pretty. She had hair like mine but longer, and she always sang a song about a place where children never went hungry." The priest's heart skipped a beat. That was the song his sister used to sing when they were children, one their mother had made up to comfort them in hard times. "Do you remember how that song went?" Grace began humming a melody that made Father David Johnson stand up abruptly from his chair. It was exactly the same song. It couldn't be a coincidence. "Grace, what was your mother's full name?" "Sarah Johnson Williams. She said Johnson was her family name, but she had to change it when I was born." The priest's legs gave way, and he had to lean on the table. Sarah Johnson, his sister. Grace was his niece, the daughter he had never known. The child standing there in such dire conditions was his own family. "Grace," he said, his voice choked, "I need to tell you something very important." But before he could continue, the girl interrupted him. "You're my Uncle David, aren't you?" The question left him speechless. How could she know? "When I started praying for you, I felt God was showing me something. And then, when you asked about my mother's song, I was sure. She always said I'd recognize my uncle when I found him." Father David knelt in front of Grace and hugged her tightly. The tears streaming down his face were no longer from sadness, but from joy mixed with pain. Joy for finding Grace, but pain imagining what she had endured alone. "Why didn't you look for me sooner? Why were you on the streets?" "I didn't know where you lived. Mum only said you worked at a church, but she didn't know in which city. I've been walking a lot from church to church searching." "And why didn't you tell me who you were when you saw me crying?" Grace lowered her head. "Because you were hurting. Mum always said when people are sad, we have to take care of their sorrow first, and only then talk about ourselves." The wisdom of that 7-year-old child moved Father David deeply. How had Sarah managed to raise such a special daughter, even through so many hardships? That afternoon, Father David took Grace to explore the church and the town. As they walked through the streets of Greenfield, the girl shared stories of the places she'd been while searching for him. "I visited many churches, Uncle. In some, the priests were kind and gave me food. In others, they sent me away. But I always prayed for all of them. Wasn't it dangerous to walk alone? Sometimes, but I always remembered the prayers Mom taught me. They protected me." During their walk, Father David noticed how Grace greeted some people with familiarity. It was clear that even though she was new to town, she had already won over some residents. "Mrs. Thompson," Grace called out when she saw an elderly woman sweeping the sidewalk. "Hello, dear. How are you?" the woman replied warmly. Father David approached and Mrs. Thompson recognized him immediately. "Father David, I didn't know you knew our Grace." "Our Grace?" he asked, surprised. "Yes, this girl showed up here a few days ago and has already become the neighborhood sweetheart. Just yesterday, she helped my grandson find his runaway dog, and when my neighbor had a headache, Grace said a prayer and the pain went away instantly." Father David looked at his niece with growing admiration. In just a few days, she had won the affection of people it had taken him years to know well. "Mrs. Thompson, Grace is my niece. She's come to live with me." "What joy! She's a special child, Father. There's something different about her." On the way back, Father David asked Grace about these experiences. "How do you help people like that?" "It's not me, Uncle. It's God working through me. Mom always said I was born to be a bridge between people and heaven." That answer made Father David reflect on his own faith. In recent months, he had felt disconnected from God, questioning whether he had truly chosen the right path. But Grace seemed to have a natural and profound connection with the divine. That night, as Grace slept in the guest room of the parish house, Father David Johnson stayed awake thinking about everything he had discovered. Sarah had left without giving him a chance to say goodbye, but she had left Grace as an unexpected gift. He decided that in the morning, he would begin the process to become Grace's legal guardian. It wouldn't be easy. A single priest adopting a child always raised questions, but he was determined to fight for her. The next morning, Father David woke to the sound of Grace singing in the backyard. When he approached the window, he saw her tending to the flowers she had planted with such care. "Good morning, Uncle," she said cheerfully. "I was talking to the flowers. They were a little sad, but they're better now." "Talking to the flowers?" "Yes. Everything God created has life and feelings. Mom taught me that." Father David smiled. Every day he discovered something new about this extraordinary girl who had come into his life so unexpectedly. During breakfast, Grace asked a question that caught him off guard. "Uncle, why were you crying yesterday in the church?" He hesitated for a moment. How could he explain depression, loneliness, and a crisis of faith to a 7-year-old? "I was going through a hard time, Grace. Sometimes adults feel sad without really knowing why." "Was it because you missed Mom?" The question hit the mark. Indeed, Sarah's sudden departure had left a huge void in his life. "Yes, I missed her very much. I miss her too, but she told me that whenever I missed her, I should just look at the sky and talk to her. She always answers, you know." "What do you mean, she answers?" "Through signs. Just yesterday, when I was looking for a place to sleep, a yellow butterfly landed on my shoulder. It was Mom's favorite color. That's how I knew I had to go into the church where you were." Father David grew thoughtful. Could it be that Sarah had in some way guided Grace to him? Or was it just a child's imagination trying to cope with loss? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, Take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. That morning, Father David had to go into town to take care of some matters. He left Grace with Mrs. Wilson, the parish cook, who had adored the girl from the moment they met. "What a special child, Father," Mrs. Wilson remarked. "There's a different light in her eyes." When Father David returned, he found Grace surrounded by neighborhood children. She was telling a Bible story so captivating that even the adults stopped to listen. And then David, who was just a boy like you, wasn't afraid of the giant. Do you know why? Because he knew God was with him, Grace said enthusiastically. "But how did he know?" asked one boy. "Because when we do good and help others, God stays really close. You might not see him, but he's right here right now," Grace replied, pointing to her heart. Father David was amazed by the girl's ability to share religious teachings in such a simple and engaging way. She had a natural gift for it. After the children dispersed, Father David approached Grace. "Where did you learn to tell stories like that?" "Mom always told me Bible stories, but I add a few parts to make them more interesting," she answered with a mischievous smile. "You added parts to David's story? Just a little?" "Mom said God doesn't mind if we change some words, as long as the message of love stays the same." That answer made Father David smile. Grace had an understanding of faith that many adults took years to develop. That afternoon, something happened that would completely change the routine of the parish. During the 3 o'clock Mass, an elderly man stumbled in, clearly unwell. "Help! My chest hurts terribly," the man cried before collapsing. Father David ran to help, but Grace got there first. She knelt beside the man and placed her hands on his chest, beginning to pray silently. "Grace, move aside. I'll call an ambulance," said Father David, worried. "No, Uncle, he'll be fine. He just needs a minute." To everyone's surprise, the man opened his eyes moments later. The pain had vanished completely, and he managed to stand up without difficulty. "What happened? I was in terrible pain, and now—" "I feel nothing," the man said, confused. "The girl prayed for you, Mr. Jenkins," explained one of the parishioners. Mr. Jenkins looked at Grace with admiration. "Young lady, you have something special. I was sure I was about to die." "God is the one who's special, Mr. Jenkins. I just asked him to help," Grace replied humbly. Word of what had happened spread quickly through town. By the next day, many people began seeking Grace at the church, asking for prayers for various troubles. Father David grew concerned about all this attention focused on his niece. He spoke with her about it. "Grace, don't you feel pressured with so many people coming to you?" "No, Uncle. I like helping. And whenever I pray for someone, I feel like Mom is with me." "But you're just a child. You shouldn't carry this burden." "It's not a burden, Uncle. It's joy. When I see people happy after prayers, I'm happy too." Father David decided to discuss the situation with the bishop of the diocese. He didn't want Grace to be unnecessarily exposed or for unrealistic expectations to be placed on her. Bishop Richard, the bishop, was a wise and understanding man. He listened carefully to Father David's account. "David, do you believe this child truly has a special gift?" "I don't know how to explain it. I just know that since she arrived, many unusual things have happened. People feel better after she prays for them." "And you? How have you been feeling?" Father David paused to reflect. Indeed, his depression had eased significantly since Grace's arrival. "Better, much better. It's like she brought a light into the church." "Then perhaps that's exactly what she brought. Light. Not necessarily a supernatural gift, but the light of love and hope. Sometimes that's all people need." The conversation with Bishop Richard reassured Father David. He decided to continue allowing Grace to help people, but would always supervise to ensure she wasn't exploited or harmed. In the following weeks, the church in Greenfield transformed. More people began attending Mass, drawn not just by Grace's presence, but by the renewal she had brought to the entire community. Grace helped Father David with various tasks, arranging altar flowers, assisting with children's catechism, and always being available to comfort those in need. One day, another situation tested the girl's maturity even further. A woman arrived at the church in tears, carrying a baby who wouldn't stop crying. "Please, someone help me. My son has been like this for 3 days. The doctors don't know what's wrong. He can't sleep or eat properly." Grace approached the woman. "May I see the baby?" The desperate woman handed the child to Grace. The moment the baby was in the girl's arms, he stopped crying instantly and began to smile. "How did you do that?" the mother asked in disbelief. "Sometimes babies get fussy because they sense adults' worries. I just talked to him and said everything was all right." The woman watched as Grace gently rocked the baby, who soon fell peacefully asleep. "Can you teach me how to do that?" "Of course. Just speak softly and show them you're not afraid. Babies sense everything we feel." This moment marked the beginning of something new in the parish. Grace started helping other mothers facing similar struggles, always in a natural and nurturing way. Father David Johnson decided it was time to formalize Grace's situation. He sought out a lawyer to begin the custody process. Mr. Robert Davis, the attorney, was honest about the challenges. "Father, it won't be easy. A single man, even a clergyman, adopting a child always raises questions, especially when there's no clear documentation about the parent's situation. But Grace is my niece. I can prove the family connection. That helps a lot. We'll need DNA tests and several other documents. The process could take months." During this time, Father David and Grace shared some of the happiest moments he'd ever experienced. The once quiet and somber parish house now echoed with laughter and lively conversations. Grace adapted quickly to the local school. The teachers were impressed by her intelligence and maturity, as well as her ability to connect with all the children. "She has an amazing way of resolving conflicts between classmates," remarked Mrs. Jennifer Baker. "Just yesterday, 2 boys were fighting, and she managed to make them friends again." "How did she do it?" asked Father David. "She talked to each one separately, listened to both sides, and then helped them understand each other's perspective. It's remarkable for a 7-year-old. At home, Grace also displayed a maturity that sometimes worried Father David. She always volunteered to help with chores and never complained. "Grace, you can play more, you don't always have to help." "But I like helping, Uncle, and I do play. Yesterday, I played house with the girls from school." "Do you miss anything? Toys? Clothes?" "No. Here, I have everything I need, a roof, food, love, and you." These answers always moved Father David deeply. How could a child who'd faced so much hardship maintain such pure gratitude? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. An unexpected event further tested the bond between uncle and niece. On a rainy morning, Father David woke up with a high fever and severe body aches. It was clear he had a bad flu. Grace immediately took charge of his care. She made tea, applied cold compresses, and refused to go to school so she could stay by his side. "Grace, you need to go to school. Mrs. Wilson can take care of me." "No, Uncle. When Mom was sick, I took care of her. I know what to do." All day, Grace tended to Father David with remarkable dedication. She checked his temperature, made sure he took his medicine on time, and even prepared a soup she'd learned to make from her mother. "Where did you learn to care for the sick so well?" "Mom was sick a lot. I learned out of necessity," Grace replied matter-of-factly. This revelation saddened Father David. He realized Grace had been forced to grow up too soon because of the hardships she'd endured. "You shouldn't have had to go through that at such a young age." "But it was good to learn, Uncle. Now I can take care of you when you need it." As he recovered, Father David reflected on how Grace had become so central to his life. She wasn't just his niece. She was like the daughter he'd never had. When he recovered, he decided to do something special for Grace. He organized a surprise party with all the children from the school and some parishioners. "What's this, Uncle?" Grace asked, surprised to see the decorations in the church hall. "A party to celebrate the day you came into my life." Grace ran to hug him, tears in her eyes. "No one's ever thrown a party for me before." "Then it's about time we started. From now on, we'll have plenty of parties to celebrate." The party was a success. Grace played, laughed, and enjoyed herself like any normal child her age. Father David realized it had been a long time since she'd had the chance to simply be a child. That night, as Grace slept, Father David made an important decision. Regardless of the outcome of the custody process, he would do everything to ensure Grace had a happy and normal childhood. The next morning, he went to speak with the school principal about extracurricular activities Grace could participate in. "Father, Grace has already shown interest in learning piano. We have a music program here at the school." "Piano? She never mentioned that to me. Yesterday, during recess, she was playing on the old piano we have in the courtyard. She played a few melodies by ear. She's very talented." Father David was surprised. Yet another skill Grace had that he hadn't known about. When he got home, he asked her about the piano. "Grace, do you know how to play piano?" "A little. My mom taught me some basics before she got really sick." "Would you like to learn more?" Grace's eyes lit up. "So much. But it must be expensive, right?" "Leave that to me. If you want to learn, you will." Father David sought out the town's music teacher, Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who had been a professional pianist in her youth. "Father, it would be my pleasure to teach the girl. I've heard so much about her. They say she has a special gift. She really is special. But I want her to have a normal life, with activities suited for her age." "I understand completely. Music can be a wonderful way for her to express herself and have fun." Piano lessons quickly became Grace's favorite part of the week. She learned fast and was soon playing small classical pieces. "Uncle, can I play at Sunday Mass?" she asked one day. "Do you think you're ready?" "Mrs. Patterson says I am, and I'd like to play a special song." The following Sunday, Grace performed in church for the first time. She played Ave Maria so movingly that there wasn't a dry eye in the congregation. After the performance, an elderly woman approached her. "Sweetheart, you played just like my daughter did when she was your age. She passed away many years ago, but when I heard you play, it was like she was here again." Grace hugged the woman. "I'm sure she was here. When we play with love, the people we've lost always come to listen." That answer touched Mrs. Henderson deeply, and from that day on, she became one of Grace's biggest admirers. Grace's musical talent grew quickly. Within months, she was composing her own simple melodies. "How do you come up with these songs, Grace?" "They come to me when I'm praying or talking to God. It's like He gives me the right notes." Father David began documenting these compositions. He could see Grace had an exceptional musical gift. One day, an unexpected event brought a new perspective to their lives. A journalist from a neighboring town heard about Grace and came to write a story. "Father, I've heard about a special girl doing extraordinary things here in your parish." Father David hesitated. "I wouldn't want to expose Grace unnecessarily. She's just a child." "I understand your concern, but stories like this can inspire others." It would be a simple interview focusing on the community's work. After speaking with Grace, Father David Johnson decided to allow the interview, but with strict conditions to protect the girl's privacy. The report aired on local television and caused a much bigger reaction than they expected. People from neighboring towns began coming to the church, wanting to meet Grace. "Uncle, why are so many people coming here?" Grace asked, worried about the unusual activity. "They heard about you and want to meet you. But is that good or bad?" "I don't know yet. Let's see how things unfold." Father David realized he needed to protect Grace from too much attention. He set specific times for people to visit her, always under his supervision. During one of these visits, a family arrived who had traveled over 100 miles. "We brought our son. He's struggling in school and doesn't want to study anymore. We heard Grace might be able to help." The boy, about 10 years old, seemed shy and sad. Grace approached him naturally. "Hi, what's your name?" "Ethan." "Cool. Do you like anything, Ethan?" "Playing ball, drawing." "I like to draw, but at school they say I'm bad at it." "Whoever said that doesn't know anything. Can I see one of your drawings?" Ethan showed a notebook with several drawings that for a child his age were actually quite good. "Wow, you draw really well. Did you know God gives different talents to everyone? Yours is drawing." "But what about school? I'm bad at everything." "School is important, but it's not the only thing that matters. You just need to find a way to study that works for you." Grace spent the afternoon talking with Ethan, showing him how he could use drawing to study better by turning subjects into illustrations. "See? If you draw a map of the United States, You'll remember the states better, and if you draw math problems, it'll be easier to understand. The family was moved to see the boy's transformation in just one afternoon. Ethan left feeling motivated and with a new perspective on school. How did you know exactly what to say to him? The boy's mother asked. I listen to what people really need to hear. Sometimes it's not hard, you just have to pay attention. This incident made Father David realize Grace truly had a special gift for connecting with people and understanding their needs. In the following weeks, Grace helped many others, a teacher who had lost motivation, a shop owner considering closing due to financial struggles, a teenager who couldn't get along with her parents. In each case, Grace used her ability to listen carefully and offer simple yet profound insights that helped people find their own solutions. Grace, how do you always know what to say? Father David asked one day. I don't know what to say, Uncle. I just listen to what people's hearts are telling me and then repeat it back to them. This answer struck Father David. Grace had developed a pure form of empathy and compassion. The guardianship process was moving slowly, but there was good progress. DNA tests confirmed the family connection, and the social workers who visited the parish house were impressed by the loving, stable environment Father David had created for Grace. Father, it's rare to see a child so balanced and happy after going through traumatic experiences, the social worker remarked. Grace is a special child. She overcame hardships with a strength I don't know where she gets it from. It comes from the love she received from her mother and now from you. Love heals many wounds. During this time, Father David decided to tell Grace more details about her mother and her family's past. Grace, would you like to know more about what your mother was like when she was young? Yes, she rarely talked about the past. Sarah was a lot like you, smart, kind, and always eager to help others. She wanted to be a teacher. Why didn't she? Life sometimes changes our plans. She had to work very young to help us when our parents got sick. Did she regret it? Never. Sarah always said everything in life happens for a reason. If she had taken a different path, you wouldn't have been born. Grace smiled. She was right. And if I hadn't been born, I wouldn't have met you. This conversation brought them even closer. Father David Johnson realized Grace had inherited not just her mother's looks, but also her wisdom and ability to find purpose, even in the hardest situations. One day, something unexpected happened. An elegant, middle-aged woman appeared at the church looking for Grace. I'd like to speak with the girl I heard about on television. May I ask the reason for your visit? It's personal, but I can say it's about her mother. Father David was both intrigued and concerned. Who was this woman, and what did she know about Sarah? Grace, there's a lady who wants to talk to you about your mother. Would you like to meet her? Did she know, Mom? We don't know yet. Let's find out together. When Grace saw the woman, she had an unexpected reaction. She stopped mid-step and stared at her. I know you, Grace said. What do you mean, dear? The woman asked, surprised. Mom had a photo of you. You were friends, weren't you? The woman began to cry. Yes, we were. I'm Catherine, your mother's best friend. We lost touch many years ago. Mom always talked about Catherine. She said I'd meet you one day. Catherine knelt and hugged Grace. Your mother spoke about you all the time. I didn't even know she had passed. How did you find each other? Father David asked. I saw the news report on TV. When I heard the name Sarah Johnson and saw Grace, I knew right away she was my friend's daughter. Catherine spent the rest of the afternoon telling stories about Sarah, revealing aspects of her sister's life that Father David never knew. Sarah was always very private about the past, Catherine explained. She suffered a lot when she fell in love with Grace's father. He was a married man who never acknowledged the relationship. Is that why she moved away? Yes, she wanted a fresh start, far from everything that hurt her. But she never stopped talking about you, Father David. She was so proud of her brother. Why didn't she reach out to me in her later years? Pride. She didn't want you to see her struggling. Sarah was always very proud. Grace listened quietly, absorbing details about her mother she had never known. Aunt Catherine, was Mom happy? In her later years, especially after you were born, yes. You were the joy of her life, Grace. Catherine became a frequent visitor to the parish house. She brought old photos of Sarah, letters she had saved, and keepsakes that helped Grace understand her mother better. "Look here, Grace, this was your mother at 15. Just like you." Catherine showed a faded photo. "She was so pretty, and she looks like she's laughing at something. Your mother laughed a lot. She had an incredible sense of humor. Even in the toughest times, she found reasons to smile." These revelations helped Grace understand where her own ability to stay joyful in hardship came from. Catherine also brought news about Grace's legal situation. "Father, I have some contacts who might help speed up the guardianship process. Sarah always spoke of you as Grace's legal guardian if anything ever happened to her." "She said that?" "Many times. She said you were the only person in the world she would completely trust to take care of Grace." This deeply moved Father David Johnson. Knowing that Sarah had thought of him as Grace's guardian gave him even more determination to formalize the situation. With Catherine's help, the guardianship process was expedited. Within a few months, Father David officially became Grace's legal guardian. "It's official now, Grace. You're officially part of our family." "I already felt like part of the family from the first day, Uncle David, but it's good that now everyone knows." The news spread through the community, which organized a celebration. The church was packed with people who had followed Grace and Father David's journey. During the celebration, Grace gave a speech that touched everyone. "I want to thank all the people who helped me find my new home. I've learned that family isn't just about sharing the same blood, but about who loves and cares for you. All of you are my family too." From that day on, Father David and Grace established an even more harmonious routine. She continued helping at the church, studying, playing the piano, and participating in community activities. One day, Grace made a special request to her uncle. "Can I start a group to teach other kids how to play the piano?" "That's a wonderful idea, but do you think you can teach?" Mrs. Patterson said, "I can, and I'd like to teach kids who can't afford lessons." Father David was proud of Grace's generosity. Even though she was only 8, she had recently celebrated her birthday, she was already thinking of ways to help others. Grace's music project was a success. In no time, she was teaching piano to over 10 children from the community. The lessons took place in the church itself, using an old piano Father David had managed to restore. "How do you teach kids older than you?" one curious mother asked. "I don't teach like a teacher. I teach like a friend. We learn together." Grace's approach worked perfectly. The children felt comfortable learning and experimenting without fear of making mistakes. During one of these lessons, something happened that deeply moved Father David. One of the children, a 10-year-old boy named Tommy, who had recently lost his father, was struggling to concentrate. "Tommy, are you okay?" Grace asked. "I can't stop thinking about my dad. He really loved music." Grace stopped the lesson and sat beside Tommy. "Do you want to play a song for him?" "What do you mean?" "Let's pick a beautiful song and play it while thinking of him. That way he'll hear it wherever he is." Tommy chose a simple song his father had loved. With Grace's help, he managed to play the melody. He cried the whole time, but they were tears of relief, not sadness. "It felt like he was here," Tommy said afterward, "because he was. Love never goes away, Tommy. It just changes places." Father David, watching from a distance, was struck by Grace's emotional maturity. She had a natural ability to help people process their emotions through music. The music project grew and began attracting attention from other towns. Soon, music educators came to see Grace's work. "It's amazing how she teaches complex musical concepts so simply," remarked a conservatory professor who visited the project. "Grace has a special gift for connecting with people," Father David explained. "I'd like to invite her to give a presentation at our music school." After discussing it with Grace, Father David accepted the invitation. It would be an opportunity for her to meet other young musicians and broaden her horizons. The presentation at the music school became a milestone in Grace's life. She played her own compositions and shared her story in a simple, moving way. "Where do you get your inspiration to compose?" asked one of the students. "From everything I see and feel. When someone is sad, I compose a joyful song. When someone is happy, I compose music that matches that happiness." Do you plan to become a professional pianist? Grace looked at Father David Johnson before answering. I want to use music to help people. If that makes me a professional, that's fine. But what matters most is that the music does good for those who listen. This answer impressed the educators present. Grace had been clear about her purpose from a very young age. After the performance, the school director made an unexpected offer. I'd like to offer Grace a full scholarship. She could study here and develop her musical talent professionally. Father David Johnson was torn. It was an incredible opportunity, but it would mean Grace would have to move to the city. Can I think about it? Asked Father David. Of course, it's an important decision. On the way home, Grace noticed her uncle's worry. You're thinking about the school's offer, aren't you? Yes, it's a great opportunity for you. But would I have to live far from you? Most likely, yes. Grace stayed silent for a few minutes. Uncle, I don't want to go. My place is here, with you and our community. Grace, you have an exceptional talent. I can't let you miss this chance because of me. It's not because of you. It's my choice. I'm happy here, and I can develop my musical talent here too. Father David was moved by Grace's answer, but also worried he might be limiting her future. That night, they had a long talk about dreams, the future, and choices. Grace, I want you to know that whatever you decide, I'll support you. I know, Uncle, but I also know my mother brought me to you for a reason. It wasn't just so you could take care of me. It was also so I could take care of you and help our community. What do you mean? Before I came, you were very sad, weren't you? And now you're happy. I've brought something to your life too. Father David realized Grace was right. She hadn't just received help. She had transformed his life and the life of the whole community. Do you really believe your place is here? I'm sure of it. I can study music, but I want to do it while continuing our work here. Maybe in the future I can share our music with others, but always coming back home. Grace's decision brought peace to Father David. He understood that pushing her to accept the scholarship would mean imposing his own fears and insecurities. The next day, they called the music school to thank them for the offer, but explained Grace had chosen to continue her studies in her hometown. We completely understand, said the director, but we'd like to stay in touch. Maybe we can arrange exchanges or joint projects. This solution left everyone satisfied. Grace would keep developing her musical talent without straying from her true calling, helping people through music and faith. In the following months, Father David and Grace's life found a perfect rhythm. She grew up happy and healthy, honing not just her musical skills, but also her leadership and compassion. The music program expanded. Grace began teaching not only piano, but also singing and composition. The group's performances became events the whole community looked forward to. During one of these performances, something special happened. Grace had composed a song in honor of all the mothers in the community. As she began to play, a yellow butterfly flew into the church and fluttered around the piano. "Look, Uncle," Grace whispered without stopping. "Mom came to listen too." Father David smiled. Whether it was a coincidence or not, that moment perfectly symbolized the peace Sarah had found in seeing her daughter happy and cared for. After the performance, an elderly lady approached Grace. "Sweetheart, that song reminded me of my own mother, who passed away many years ago. It was as if she were here with me." "She was," Grace replied with certainty. "A mother's love never leaves. It just stays tucked away in our hearts, waiting for a beautiful song to bring it back." Grace's words spread through the community and became a source of comfort for many who had lost loved ones. Father David Johnson realized Grace had found her true calling, using music and faith to heal emotional wounds and bring hope to people. Over time, the church in Greenfield became known not just locally, but across the state as a place of peace, music, and spiritual renewal. Grace, now 9 years old, had become a young community leader, always involved in projects to help those in need. One day, she had an idea that even surprised Father David. "Uncle, What if we created a music festival here in town? A festival? Yes, we could invite musicians from other cities to perform here, and all the proceeds could go to families in need. Grace's idea became reality. The first Greenfield Music Festival took place the following year and was an absolute success. Professional musicians came from various cities to participate, drawn not by fame, but by the chance to be part of such a beautiful social project. "How did a 9-year-old manage to organize something like this?" asked a journalist covering the event. "I didn't do it alone," Grace replied. "Everyone here helped. I just had the idea, and people made it happen." The festival became an annual event and transformed the local economy. Hotels, restaurants, and small businesses benefited from the influx of tourists. But more important than the economic impact was the social aspect. The festival became an opportunity for community unity and fundraising for social projects. Grace continued to grow, always keeping her simplicity and dedication to helping others. Father David watched her development with pride and admiration. "Grace, have you thought about what you want to be when you grow up?" "I want to keep being what I am now, someone who uses the gifts God gave me to make people happy." "And if you could have any profession? A music teacher maybe, or a missionary, or both at the same time?" Father David smiled. Grace had found her identity and life's purpose very early. One day when Grace turned 10, Father David decided to plan a special surprise. He organized a party that brought together everyone who had been important on their journey. Catherine came from New York. Mrs. Patterson brought a special cake. All the music students prepared performances, and even Bishop Richard attended. "Grace," Father David said during the celebration, "3 years ago, you arrived here as a lost child. Today you are the heart of this community." "No, Uncle. Today we are the heart of this community, because that's what family is, people who love and care for each other." During the party, Bishop Richard made an announcement that moved everyone. "In recognition of the extraordinary work done here, the diocese has decided to create an official music and social assistance program based on your model. Grace will be our youngest consultant." Grace was surprised and honored, but her first concern was practical. "Does that mean I'll have to travel a lot?" "Not necessarily. You can help by training others right here." The party went on late into the night, filled with music, stories, and lots of joy. When everyone had left, Father David Johnson and Grace stayed alone in the church, tidying up the last details. "Uncle, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you still feel sad when you think about Mom?" Father David thought for a moment. "I miss her, but I'm not sad anymore. Because I see so much of Sarah in you that it's like she's always with us. I feel the same way. It's like she sent you to take care of me, and me to take care of you." They hugged in silence, grateful to have found each other. In the following years, Grace and Father David continued developing social projects in the community. The music program expanded, including workshops for other instruments and even a community choir. Grace grew into a well-balanced, intelligent teenager, deeply committed to her community. She maintained excellent grades in school, kept playing the piano brilliantly, and became a leader in practically every social project in the area. When she turned 15, she received offers again to study at prestigious conservatories, both in the United States and abroad. "So, Grace, still sure you want to stay here?" Father David asked. "More sure than ever. My place is here, with you and with our community family." "But aren't you curious to see the world?" "I am, but I know I can see the world by continuing our work here. The world also comes to us." Indeed, the impact of their work had attracted visitors from various countries. Educators, musicians, clergy, and social workers came to learn about their projects and bring the experiences back to their own communities. Grace became a young speaker, sharing her story at universities and international gatherings, always returning home the same day. "How do you manage to inspire people much older and more experienced than you?" a university professor asked after one of her talks. "I don't inspire anyone, I just tell our story. People are inspired when they realize anyone can make a difference, no matter their age or circumstances." Father David, who accompanied Grace to these events, grew prouder each time, seeing how she had become a wise and articulate young woman while keeping the humility and simplicity that always defined her. One day, when Grace was 17, Father David received news that would change their lives again. The Vatican had learned about their work and was considering creating an international program based on their experiences. "What does this mean?" Grace asked. "It means you could become a model for the whole world," explained Bishop Richard, who had brought the news. "Is that good or bad?" "It depends on how you handle the responsibility." Grace and Father David talked at length about this new possibility. "Uncle, if our work can help people in other places, we have to accept, right? Are you sure it'll be a huge responsibility?" "I am. But on one condition, our work here can't suffer. Greenfield will always be our priority." From that moment on, Grace and Father David became international consultants, helping implement programs like theirs in different parts of the world. They traveled often but always for short periods, keeping their commitment to the local community. During one of these trips for an international conference on music and social work, Grace gave a speech that would be remembered for years. "I've learned that love has no borders, languages, or religions. When we use our talents to help others, we're speaking a language everyone understands. Music is just a tool. What matters is the love we put into it." The speech was translated into more than 20 languages and became a global reference for community social work. When they returned from that trip, Grace made a confession to Father David. "Uncle, as beautiful as it is to see other places and meet other people, there's no better feeling than coming back home." "Why?" "Because this is where everything began. It's where our story makes sense. It's where Mom brought me to find you." Father David hugged Grace, deeply moved. At 57, he had found not just a daughter, but a partner in his mission to spread love and hope throughout the world. Grace, at 17, had already touched thousands of lives but kept the same sweetness and humility as the 7-year-old girl who had arrived at the church on that rainy day. "Grace, you know you have my full support for any decision you make about your future, right?" "I know, Uncle. And you know my decision will always be to stay by your side, continuing the work we started together. And what if one day you want to get married, have your own family? I'll get married here in our church. And my children will grow up here, learning the same values you taught me." Grace's certainty about her future brought Father David a deep sense of peace. He knew that no matter what happened, they would always have each other. In the following months, Grace began preparing for her transition into adulthood. She decided to study music education at the university in the neighboring town, allowing her to pursue her degree without leaving home. "I want to officially learn everything I've already been doing in practice," she explained. "That way I can help others develop similar projects." Father David fully supported her decision. Grace would be the first in the family to earn a college degree, fulfilling a dream Sarah had always held. On the day of her high school graduation, Father David gave an emotional speech for Grace. "When you arrived here 10 years ago, I was lost. I had lost my faith, my hope, and my purpose in life. You gave all of that back to me and so much more. You taught me that miracles do exist, but they're not supernatural. They're natural. They happen when two people love each other and dedicate themselves to helping others." Grace replied with tears in her eyes, "Uncle, you saved my life. You gave me not just a home, but a family, a community, and a purpose. Everything I am today I owe to you and to Mom, who had the wisdom to send me to find you." The graduation turned into a community celebration. All of Greenfield came not just to honor Grace's achievement, but to celebrate everything she had meant to the town. During the festivities, the mayor made a special announcement. In recognition of her service to our community, the City Council has decided to grant Grace Johnson Williams the title of Honorary Citizen. Grace was moved but responded in her usual way. "I'm deeply grateful for this honor, but I've felt like a citizen of this town since the very first day. You welcomed me when I needed it most." During her college years, Grace balanced her studies perfectly with her community work. She developed a thesis on music as a tool for social integration, which became an academic reference. At the same time, she expanded local projects, creating a music program for the elderly, another for children with special needs, and even a choir for people recovering from addiction. "How do you find time for all this?" a college classmate once asked. When you do what you love, time multiplies, Grace replied. In her final year of college, Grace received an unexpected offer. A record label wanted to produce an album of her compositions. Grace, you could become a famous singer, the producer said. Your music has something special. Thank you for the interest, but that's not the path I want to take. Why not? Because my music was born for the community. They were meant to be sung in churches, schools, and homes, not on commercial stages. Once again, Grace chose to stay true to her values, turning down an opportunity many would consider once in a lifetime. When she graduated with a degree in music education at 21, Grace already had a clear plan for the future. Uncle, I want to start a social music school here in town. A place where underprivileged children can learn music for free and where we can train other educators to bring our method to other cities. That's an ambitious project, but possible. I already have support from several organizations we met during our travels. The Grace Johnson Social Music School opened 2 years later in a building donated by the city and equipped with resources from national and international partnerships. Grace became the youngest director of an educational institution in the region, but her leadership was respected by all because of her experience and dedication. Director Grace, how do you motivate both students and teachers? A journalist asked during the opening ceremony. I don't motivate anyone. I just show each person the potential they already have inside. Music is simply a tool to discover that potential. The school quickly became a success. In no time, there was a waiting list for enrollment and requests from other cities to open similar branches. Father David Johnson, now 62, remained Grace's right-hand man in every project, and also her biggest admirer. Grace, you've surpassed every dream I could have had for you. Not surpassed, Uncle, fulfilled, because all my dreams include you by my side. One day, something special happened. A young music teacher came to work at the school. Michael Anderson was a serious, dedicated young man who shared Grace's values. Father David noticed the connection between them immediately, but chose to observe quietly. Grace and Michael began working together on several projects. Their ideas complemented each other, and they had an impressive professional harmony. Grace, do you like Michael? Father David asked one day, point blank. Grace blushed. He's an excellent professional and a wonderful person. That's not what I asked. Uncle, yes, I like him. But I'm afraid. Afraid of what? That if I get married, our partnership will change. You're the most important person in my life, and I don't ever want that to change. Father David smiled. Grace, love doesn't divide. It multiplies. If you're happy with Michael, I'll be happy too. And our partnership will only grow stronger. With her uncle's encouragement, Grace let her relationship with Michael develop naturally. Michael fit perfectly into the family Grace and Father David had built. He respected their special bond and admired the work they did. 2 years later, Michael proposed to Grace in a very special way, during a concert at the church where it had all begun. Grace Johnson, will you marry me and continue our mission together to spread love through music? The proposal took place in front of the entire community, who erupted in applause when Grace said yes. The wedding was held in the same church where Grace had met Father David 15 years earlier. Bishop Richard officiated the ceremony. Catherine came from New York as the maid of honor, and all of Greenfield joined the celebration. During the ceremony, a yellow butterfly fluttered around the bride and groom, drawing smiles from Grace and Father David. Mom is here too, Grace whispered to her uncle. She always has been, he replied. In her speech at the reception, Grace moved everyone to tears. 15 years ago, a lost child met a sad priest in a church. Today, that child is marrying the man she loves, alongside the uncle who saved her, in the very church where it all began. If that isn't a miracle, I don't know what is. Michael Anderson and Grace moved into a house near the church, keeping the tradition of having Sunday lunch with Father David Johnson. 2 years after the wedding, Grace gave birth to a baby girl named Sarah, in honor of the grandmother she never knew. When Father David held his granddaughter for the first time, he felt the circle of life had come full circle. Hello, little Sarah. I'm your grandfather, and I'll tell you beautiful stories about your grandma Sarah and how your mother changed everyone's lives here." Grace watched the scene with tears of joy. Her daughter would grow up surrounded by the same love she had received. Little Sarah brought even more happiness to the family and the community. Father David, now 67, discovered the joys of being a grandfather. Grace perfectly balanced motherhood with her work at the school and social projects, always with the support of Michael and Father David. When Sarah turned 2, the family received a very special visit. His Holiness the Pope, during his trip to the United States, wanted to meet them personally. It's remarkable how a personal experience of faith grew into such a far-reaching social movement, the Pope remarked during the visit. "Your Holiness, it all began with a simple prayer from a child for a suffering priest," Grace explained. "And that's the essence of faith, the willingness to help others no matter our own circumstances." The Pope's visit brought global recognition to the work in Greenfield. Grace and Father David were invited to speak at the Vatican about music and social mission. Despite the international attention, they remained humble and focused on their local community. "Our success isn't measured by fame, but by the number of lives we've touched," Grace said in an interview. Over the years, the Grace Johnson Social Music School expanded to over 50 US cities and 10 countries. Grace became an international figure in social music education. Father David, though officially retired, stayed active in all projects, now affectionately called Grandpa David by the community's children. When Grace turned 30, the community organized a grand celebration. During the party, a video played featuring testimonies from people worldwide whose lives they had impacted. "Seeing how a story that began so simply grew into something so big makes me believe every small act of love can change the world," Grace said, moved. At the celebration, Father David gave a speech that perfectly summed up their 23-year partnership. "Grace came into my life when I had lost my faith. She taught me God isn't just in grand miracles, but in the small, everyday acts of love. She showed me how a 7-year-old could save a grown man with just a sincere prayer. She proved family isn't just blood, but love, care, and mutual devotion." Grace replied, "Uncle, you taught me it's never too late to start over. That love is the strongest force in the universe, and that everyone has something special to offer the world. You gave me a family, a community, and a purpose. You showed me miracles happen every day, especially when we open our hearts to others." The party went on late into the night, filled with music, stories, and joy. 3 generations of the Johnson-Williams family were together: Father David, Grace, Michael, and little Sarah. As he watched his family, Father David Johnson reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with a simple question: "May I pray for you?" That question hadn't just changed his life. It had transformed an entire community and inspired thousands of people around the world. When everyone had left and the family was alone in the church, Grace picked up Sarah in her arms and sat at the piano. She began to play the same melody her mother had taught her years ago. "This song has a special story, little Sarah. One day when you're older, I'll tell you all about it." Father David listened to the music with a heart full of gratitude. God had answered his prayers in a way he could never have imagined. Grace wasn't just his niece, she was his daughter in spirit, his partner in mission, and his greatest blessing. Little Sarah fell asleep in her mother's arms to the sound of the music, while Father David and Michael Anderson tidied up the church. "Grandpa, do you think Sarah will have the same gift as her mother?" Michael asked. "She already does," Father David replied with a smile. "Just look at how everyone adores her. But whatever gift God gives her, I'm sure she'll use it to help others just as she learned from her mother." When they left the church that night, a yellow butterfly fluttered around them, like a silent blessing. Grace smiled and whispered, "Thank you, Mom, for everything." The sky was full of stars, and Father David felt a deep peace in his heart. His journey had begun with tears of despair and was now filled with joy and purpose. Grace had arrived as a lost child and had become the light that brightened not only his life but the lives of thousands. Michael carried little Sarah, who slept soundly, unaware that she was already destined to carry on a legacy of love and music. As they walked home, Father David offered a silent prayer of gratitude for the journey they had traveled together. 23 years after that first question, They were no longer a lonely priest and an abandoned child. They were a family united by love, faith, and the mission to spread hope through music. And the story continued, now with a new generation to uphold the values of compassion, generosity, and unconditional love that had transformed so many lives. The end. Now, tell us what you thought of this story and where you're following us from. If you have something to share, leave us a heartfelt comment. Do you believe the meeting between Grace and Father David was destiny? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other touching stories.